an email about it, or I will, and then if people can't make that date, we can find another
Okay,
an alternate time for you to come and say goodbye to Pat. Sounds
good.
good?
All right.
Great.
Okay, I think we are calling the meeting to order as soon as we're live, right?
Yeah, you can, I'm just gonna mute the volume on YouTube once it gets going, but you can start right now, Marguerite.
Okay, and we don't need to read the boilerplate anymore, which is lovely.
Thank goodness.
You're gonna miss it?
Not
Okay.
1 ounce.
All right, it is 11:04, September 20th, 2021, and I'm calling this meeting of the Southborough Library Board of Trustees to order. Our first order of business is to review and approve the minutes for the meeting October 24th and the short meeting October 30th. Do I have any emendations or corrections for the minutes?
I have a question on the minutes. The issue of the piano came up, and I'm wondering. I don't know that we need to change the minutes, but I'm wondering if that has been wrestled to the ground just yet.
Yeah, I can give an update on that. Because I think the meeting was kind of ambiguous as to whether or not we were gonna, like I think Kim had suggested in the meeting, we sort of put together like a piano plan. I followed up with the resident and he actually found another place for the piano.
Excellent.
The offer is off the table now. So that is kind of resolved. But I think
Okay.
the minutes reflect, David, where the discussion was, because I think we were going to do
Right.
additional work.
Right.
And the next email I sent to him was that there were some concerns that we wanted to address, and then he had found another place for it at that point.
Okay.
All right, so do we?
I
thank
found
you,
a
question.
typo.
Yes, please,
Okay.
typos.
Okay, on October, I'm sorry, the August 24th one,
Yeah,
way down under volunteer Corey policy.
yeah.
The
That's on
fourth
page
line down,
2,
director, you're missing a C.
Oh, my goodness. Okay, thank you. All right, any other emendations or corrections for the 24th? Okay, do I have a motion to accept?
So
So
moved.
moved.
Okay, so, and do I have a second?
Jane, you're muted.
They're cutting trees down right outside my door. I don't know if you can hear it, but I can. I second.
Okay.
Okay, good. Okay, so the motion was it Janet or David? Because you just spoke at the same time. Who wants the motion?
Janet does.
Janet wants the motion. Okay, for this meeting, we'll have Janet moving and Jane seconding. How's that? Is that going to work? Okay, so Janet moved, Jane seconded, and the minutes for August 24th are accepted with the emendation of the C in director. How about the minutes of August 30th? Any emendations or corrections? Okay, do I have a motion to accept?
So moved.
Okay, and second. Jane.
I second, sure.
So much for my system. Okay,
Let's move this
I give
along.
up. All right. It seemed like a good idea. The Space Needs Study Capital Planning Committee, do we have Jason with us?
You do. I'm going to move him over to panelist now. Thank you, Jason, for being patient. And Mr. Litt is in the audience too, just to let everybody know.
All right, thanks.
Move Jason over right now, okay?
Hi, everyone.
Hi, Jason, welcome.
Jason.
Thank you for the attention that capital planning is paying to the library space situation. Maybe you
You're
can
very welcome.
tell us about that.
Yeah, so it's thanks for getting me onto the agenda. And I think what I wanted to do is bring back where the capital planning committee is at. And the reason I wouldn't call it urgent, but we'd like to get a sense of where the library board of trustees is we're trying to figure out where we spend our time as we move forward and what we found. And there's obviously a I'll call it adjacent work stream dealing with the schools that I'm going to probably leave off to the side for this discussion. But as all of you know, the town hired a designer to look at the space needs of all town departments outside of public safety. Obviously, library being a very important department that is analyzed. I'm sure it's going to come as no surprise to all of you that when you look at the current space needs of each department and the proposed future space needs of each department, the library clearly has one of the larger requests of incremental square footage based on current to proposed. And based on the data that Ryan, I believe David, you were also maybe involved with the designer, was looking at, it's about 5,000 square feet for each of the items that the library had outlined. Our designer was very intrigued in particular by the library, and really started to already move down some potential proposed paths of where it could go. But we asked, kind of just obviously knowing that this building falls under your control, that I said I'd like to speak to all of you first. And I think there's I guess, two paths that we could go down here, and I'm going to lay them out and just let you kind of all react, ask questions, discuss. Is path number one is we, the capital planning committee, could continue to work with you, the library board of trustees, to advance your space needs in the immediate term as part of a much grander plan to deal with needs across the town. Right? Simple things is for office space for some of our town departments, recreational needs, school administration needs, et cetera, and loop you into that broader plan. That broader plan is short-term, right? We will be looking for additional funds likely at the annual town meeting, so in March, to advance some of that. And the key with that would be looking at the existing library site in a potential renovation and whether that would make sense to deal with the space needs that you all have brought forward. The alternative is, I know Marguerite and Ryan have come to capital planning meetings in the past year or two since we were formed and talked a lot about the library, the state library grant process, right? And updates on that and where does that stand? I think option two is really, do you wait for a process to come out and deal with it, in that situation? So really it's situation one is, do you want us to kind of help advance on the existing site in the short term? Or do you want to kind of take the data that our designer has now gathered, take it under advisement, but wait until a formal library construction grant cycle opens up from the state? Our designer did check back in with the same folks I'm sure Ryan talks with on a regular basis. And our understanding is there probably won't be another cycle until roughly 2027 at this point, in terms of they may combine design and construction together. They usually do those separately. They do design before construction. And then, as you all know, for any that are watching kind of some of the other towns that are dealing with this in the area or statewide, even once you get accepted into the program, you're on a list, right? And they go through the list based on whoever the governor at that time really is in terms of how he or she releases funding along the way. So really, I think it's a question of timing of how immediate you believe your space needs are, and whether you'd be looking at something shorter term that we could collaborate on, or whether you just want to be patient and wait into a full analysis when that cycle opens up, whenever it does, which none of us have a crystal ball, but all I can do is, relay what we've heard, and obviously Ryan could probably corroborate. So.
Thank you. And could I please just ask could I just poll each of the board members to see what their thoughts are on this?
Well, I'll start by saying that the year 2027 sounds like an enormously long way down the road, and the needs that the library seems to have, in my view anyway, are much more immediate than that. So I would be, simplistically speaking, I would be in favor of alternative one, Jason.
Okay, Janet?
Um, Yeah, that 2027, just getting on a list does sound pretty far away, but I wonder, I think we need to do a lot of work on what we want, and what the needs are. I wonder if there's any way to do a two-step process. Maybe identify those needs, see what's most immediate, see if we could do some as a town, and also for a longer term, bigger solution, go to the next one? Is that too complicated?
No, I don't think so. Amy, what do you think?
I think that we should be prepared for any of the cycles coming, but it doesn't hurt to explore what all our options are. And we're going to have to do our investigations either way. So starting those, at which we are in the process of anyway, won't hurt.
Okay, Kim?
I agree with Amy. I think that we need to explore all options right now. I know we've been talking about the state grant for a long time, and in the time I've been a trustee, what you said, Jason, about the next 5 years being the next possible one is probably the most specific rumor on when the next grant round would come about. So I think as trustees, we need to seriously consider the grant just due to the financial support and benefit it can provide to the town. But then at the same time, we have to be realistic on the risks. The timing is completely out of our control. And even when they do open that grant cycle, there's no guarantee that we will move forward within that cycle, or we could be put on a wait list, which could knock this down much further. So I think understanding what are more immediate needs versus what we're willing to wait for long-term, maybe there are ways that we could address some immediate needs if we do want to do an ultimate renovation through the state grant cycle. But I think we kind of need to move forward with all feasible options because even if we do move forward with doing it ourselves and paying for it for the town, I think that we owe it to the town to say, like, well, here's the flip side of why we would do it ourselves and incur the entire cost versus waiting for the grant cycle, which could mean that this project wouldn't happen for, 5 or 10 or 15 plus years. So I think as long as we go through all the steps, so everyone understands that we are considering the best options for the library in terms of financial support, as well as timing and maybe even seeing these renovations in our lifetime.
Jane?
I think that pretty much says it all. We need to take the path that's going to give us something sooner than later. And I would have gone a little farther to say, no, let's not wait for the grant cycle, because we have needs that are more immediate than that. But I think Kim said it better than that.
All right, and Ryan?
I mean, I think as part of there are steps you take before you do ultimate construction. I did watch your meeting, Jason. I'll just say I was a little concerned about space being already drawn onto where the library would go.
That's why we came
Yeah.
here.
So, and then I know that some of the members of the Capital Committee also had their own ideas for how space would be added onto the library. I think while it's great to have a lot of ideas that are out there, I think part of what we would need is to do a more in-depth investigation as to how exactly space could be added, and sort of from an operational perspective, if the space being added in that area would even make sense.
Well, yeah, so I think that makes a lot of sense, Ryan. That's why we stopped the conversation, as you probably could tell. And that's why this decision is really important that the library board is talking about now, is if everyone was going to wait for the grant cycle, then we're not going to waste time and money of the town to figure out whether any of those spaces work. But obviously, I think we're getting a direction of let's continue to explore, it seems. which would then allow for, there's multiple layers of feasibility that go into any sort of construction before you could ever bring something to town meeting. But I candidly don't want to spend money doing it if it's going to fall on kind of, I'll call it deaf ears, if that's not the direction that this, at least current elected board, wanted to go.
I see two elements in this right now. One is that, for instance, does the current addition get torn off? We need twice as much stack room. We need at least 4 meeting rooms. People in Southborough are so used to not having meeting rooms, they don't even ask us anymore. So we need meeting rooms. We need a children's room that has more stacks in it too. We need places for tutoring. We have a lot of needs. And I think, to my mind, a useful thing would be to have somebody at least come in and say, okay, ideal library space, what do you want? Do we leave the addition on and put something else there? The addition's got a lot of problems. The
I don't
ADA
think that
compliance,
it's not just a conversation though with.
right, it's a committee,
Or
or it's a
one
committee
person.
and a consultant,
Yeah,
right?
'cause part of what you do as the planning, part of the planning and design grant
Right.
cycle for Jason, and just for the board members that might be less familiar with it, is
Right,
you have to do a needs assessment where specifically you're polling the community to try to see what they want from their library. And that directly influences, I think, some of the things that you would put into place with a potential request. But sort of, I guess back to Jason's point, I mean, there's clearly an appetite. I think a lot of people on the board have been waiting to look at doing something for
right.
renovation for a long time. Marguerite, I know, was the only board member left from when I got here, and we were talking about it in my interview. So it's been at least 7 years.
So there's one other element I want to put in there. I think the people of Southborough love very much the old room and don't want to lose it. And I think that's generally true. But I also think the people of Southborough have been trained to adjust to a library that's way too cramped. We have to throw out so many books when we read because we don't have enough stack space. The interlibrary loans, a bunch of crates are dumped in the circulation desk area and the staff is used to it, but it's terrible. So I think we have to educate the community to what other towns around us are used to and have done, that there can be 4 meeting rooms, that there can be, a larger collection. And I think the people of Southborough are saying, well, the library's doing really great considering the space they're in. But I don't think it's like the shoe is too small, but people aren't used to it. I think we have an education campaign ahead of us if we're going to get the town to get behind the millions of dollars it's going to cost to do this.
Under either option.
Yes,
Right,
I think I think that we need to start an education campaign with the residents of Southborough right now. They, on the whole, love the library. We love the library, and we're just used to having something that's way too small. And if you go to Hopkinton and look what their addition has done, or Bolton, or any of those places, you'll see they've got fabulous things going that happen through their renovations that we don't even dream of. 5 or 6 years ago, people used to ask all the time if they could use meeting rooms for meetings, and now they don't even ask anymore because we have one meeting room. It's in a basement. It has little windows that are up high looking at the grass, and people just say, okay, that's the way it is. But we need to make the residents aware that there's a lot of other possibilities. So I think that's the first step right there, even before we do any of the surveys.
I would just
to get people
conclude
educated.
before everybody hold your thought, but just to conclude what I was saying before, I would just say there's definite steps we can take to start our needs assessment now. And I think there's elements of the planning and design cycle that we can do ahead of the grant. So I clearly think, Jason, you're hearing there's an appetite on the board for that.
Jason, I have a question.
Sure.
Ryan sent us all a memo on September 19th and indicated that if we were to choose following the state grant cycle, that there would be a somewhere between 47 and 48% coverage by state funds of the construction cost. Is my understanding correct that applies only to one of the 2 alternatives?
Correct. Alternative two, right? That's the
Yeah.
wait and see methodology, I guess is
Right.
how we call
But
it.
it's millions of dollars. It's $8 or $10 million to that.
Well,
will-
that's if you're building something new. So there's a few things, right, that go into your decision, right? And it's just a directional now, right, for further analysis. 8 to 10 million is if you're going to build something brand new, starting from scratch. And right, I think what we're looking at as a town is how do we bundle all the needs of the various constituents together? So seniors are looking for a senior center. They're looking for an addition to Corderville Hall as the current plan. You know, is that the right answer, or should we be doing something different? Obviously, the library has their own needs. Neary School is beyond its useful life,
Mhm.
and recreation is looking for indoor space, and then you've got a bunch of all the smaller pockets of needs. So our single goal as capital is how do you bring that all together in one comprehensive plan, as opposed to you all doing your own campaign just to support the library. And right, you have people that are staunch supporters that will always come out and vote for the library, but without like bringing like a financially responsible plan too, right? So as David mentioned, right, there's a 40+% match, right, on the library, but what's the cost of waiting? That's what we need to analyze, right? Is what's the inflationary cost, right? Go try to build that public safety building again right now. It's costing 5 to 10 million more than what we paid as a town, and we didn't even pay 20 million. So I think about the inflationary pressures, even without COVID, without tariffs and all of that, there's just natural pressure in the system of, is there a way to make it all fit? A lot of you mentioned meeting rooms. Part of that should be, should the meeting rooms actually all be at the library, right? Or can we solve the meeting room space for the town in some other facility so that you're focused on maximizing space for library programs, whatever that may be. Now, library programs may need meeting room space. You all are going to have to tell us that as we go further, but you know, are you solving for the right needs of the community, or are you just solving based on the requests in the past because of the room space we had? And can we solve some of these public meeting room spaces in other areas outside of maybe the core structure that you're all currently operating to free up space for stack space or program space, et cetera? Those are like the type of questions that we want to be able to help answer with one solution as opposed to 5 individual solutions.
Right, I understand that. And in some towns, the senior center and the library are the same building. I think you're right. We need to step back and look at all the moving parts of what the town needs. And I think it was a bit of a cautionary tale where the town went ahead and built the addition in 1988 and 1989 because the state didn't want to pay for it because it was too wet. And that was an error because it is too wet. It was kind of like the town saying, okay, we'll do it anyway. And that was a mistake. And I think I keep that in mind. And I wonder if the library solution, if it's going to be a Band-Aid and it's going to be the wrong Band-Aid, or the best way to step back and do we have to rip the addition off? Do we have to change where we are? There's so many questions in my mind about how to do it, but I understand what you're doing, Jason, and I think that the library is happy to be part of a larger plan of what the town needs. How we get there, I have no idea. Go ahead.
Was that, who was talking? Somebody.
You are now.
Janet, you go ahead.
Well, I have a couple of questions that might, okay. So the long-term program, does that provide any support for additions, or is it only for new builds? The state program?
No, it's renovations. They mostly do renovations.
They mostly build additions. 90% of what the state does with libraries, or 80 to 90%, I think I've got this right, is to build an addition on an existing one.
They classify it as renovation because you can use the construction money to renovate the outside of the existing structure. And it's not 40%, Jason, it's closer to 47. They pay for half, and that is if construction costs increase. So it's always going to be around that number that they pay for. So I think we talked about this a year and a half ago when the trustees came to Capitol, is that there's a big financial incentive in following the state construction program. There's an advanced grant round of planning and design, which when you apply for that, that sort of states your intention, but you are kind of you have to follow the state grant cycle in order to do that. And it is erratic. There's no other way to say that.
It's very
That'll
similar to
be
what the
that.
schools have to deal with,
Yeah.
right?
So that's that
think
40
you're-
to 40%, regardless of whether it's renovation or new build.
47%. It's 47 to 48, and that's if you get more incentive if you LEED certify, if it's environmentally safe, which I will just say, if we renovate our existing building, I've talked to John about this, it's very difficult to do because our building is older.
Other questions?
Just, Jason, can you share some of the other ideas that your committee had for helping the library with their issues? The less outlandish ideas, maybe?
I guess when we took the needs and looked at the square foot, it was approximately 5,000 square feet. That includes some meeting space, et cetera. So some of us with financial hats on, were doing 5,000 times the cost of construction per square foot
Yeah.
and saying, you know, is that, do we want to wait, right? Or does it make sense to further explore? I think is where some of it went. Our designer had all sorts of things, which I think Ryan was obviously, you know, looking at, and in some of our committee was playing architect on the fly, which none are architects. So, you know, I kind of shut down the conversation, to be completely honest, and said I wanted to see what your appetite was. So there are things that are candidly our design team, right? Naturally, that's what they're thinking about, but I don't want them thinking about it if you all don't want to be thinking about it, because it doesn't go anywhere without you. But I think my job is, you know, chair of capital planning, is to educate all the constituencies, right? Like my next conversations with school committee and recreation commission, right? In terms of how this all comes together. There's obviously a subcommittee that's looking at the potential closure of a school. Can that happen? Will it happen? Ultimately, is up to the school committee, not any of us. So, you know, I think that's what we're just trying to do, is understand, all right, based on what we're hearing from space needs, hearing that a renovation could be possible subject to significant further vetting, feasibility, and discussion, you know, is that something you wanted to entertain, or you just wanted to wait for the library construction grant cycle? So
Janet,
Okay, go ahead.
just because I watched his meeting, and I know Jason doesn't want to throw anybody under the bus, but I will just say one of the things the designer recommended was, in order, because parking was one of the things we talked about, and then has consistently come up in prior strategic plans as people want more parking at the library, especially since apparently Verizon trucks now permanently park there in the back. So the parking lot, they suggested extending it into part of the grass that's on the other side, which is exactly where we just authorized and worked with OSPC to put in that native plant garden. So I can tell you logistically, some of the ideas would not work because of like different initiatives and programs that the library had. So that would just be an example of one of the ideas. I think it was a good idea, but I don't think that the space planner was aware that a garden was just put in and then is going to be maintained for several years.
So it sounds like we're agreeable to listening to whatever can be brought forward that might help us. And at this point, we're sort of had our mindset on waiting for the state grant, because that seemed like the only option. And now there's another option, and we're open to hearing what's possible. Does that sound like sort of where we are? And I really do think we need an expert to do a space needs assessment that is based on the MBLC idea of what a library needs. I know they've got stuff on their website about what you want to have in your library. So I guess, Jason, what I'm saying is we are open to suggestions here, and there we are.
Okay,
So
so I'm guessing you were looking for more unanimity or a more clear group of opinions than you're getting. Did we sound a little all over the place to you? Be honest with me.
No, we are all over the place because we don't have enough data to make a decision.
Yeah, I think where we can leave it with Jason, though, is that you're interested in pursuing additional options and in moving forward with capital about different things that could be done. I honestly think, Jason, that this is a good step in continuing to have an ongoing conversation about the space needs at the library. I think one of the things that happens is this comes up like once a year, once every year and a half, and then the conversation kind of goes away. That kind of stop the fact that the library needs space needs. And I think like what you said, I would be very interested in looking at an overall town plan that talks about how to address meeting space town-wide, because then we could see where the library could help fill that particular gap. So, you know, or if the needs of the library, I think in some aspects, the needs of the library, both from the trustees, from me, and from the community, and from the staff, that's another thing we should look at, is they may, you know, we may have to find a compromise there to find sort of the best way forward. So I think you're hearing, again, like an appetite for continuing to talk about this. I think it's important to establish a relationship where we're continuing the conversation.
So next
I-
steps,
I
what would
have
you
one more
like from us?
question. Can I ask one more question?
Sure.
Okay, I think without the needs assessment, we don't really know what the additional space needs are, but you, Jason, had the figure of 5,000 square feet. What's for the construction folks, what is the potential cost of 5,000 additional feet?
In public construction, you're looking somewhere between $500 to $600 per square foot right now.
Okay.
But does
All
that
it's
mean,
gonna-
does that mean it's an additional thing that's put on in addition to the old addition? Or
I think that's the discussion that needs to happen,
Yeah,
Marguerite.
Yeah.
So I don't know, Jane, if that answers your question. I have a suggestion on next steps to go to David's point of, hey, we haven't given you perfect consensus, but we've given you enough guidance, because
Yeah.
I do think something's come out of it for me. But Jane, I just want to make sure we answered your question first.
Yeah.
And Janet, Jason mentioned this before, but that is not a number that's solid. That changes based on construction costs. So
Well, but also the 5,000 square feet need might change when we do a more thorough needs assessment.
right.
So I know there's enough. I just wanted to
Site
know
work is
how-
always the most expensive, right? And
Pardon me?
we'd be built site work.
Okay,
The actual framing, right?
Yep.
Is a number, but you know, you're building at the bottom of a hill and probably into a hill if you're expanding your
Okay.
current footprint.
above a stream.
Above a septic
Yeah.
system too.
Yeah. So let me
Mr.
throw this
Palmer
out there,
said it
Marguerite.
was- Mr. Palmer said it was a river in the meeting. It was a stream. Sorry,
Yeah.
Jason. Sorry.
Let's not make it worse than it already is.
So
Anyway,
So what I would suggest is this feedback's really helpful. This is what we're looking for. I didn't expect, some sort of huge motion that was, unanimous on some accord, but we as a town are paying someone to do a space needs study. And I think my takeaway is that team needs to have another conversation with Ryan and whoever you as a library board are designating to have that conversation. Because I want to get what we're paying for as a town, right? It's a much broader than just a library, but I think that team needs to come back to you with their space needs, like, sitting down with Ryan, vetting it, sitting down with a designee of the library board, but then coming back and making a presentation to all of you. So you kind of say, yeah, this is kind of what we need, because then that's going to inform where we go in feasibility, right? To answer, do you build on, right? But if you don't have the right number to start with, which is the whole purpose of doing a space needs, anything else we do from here is flawed, like big time, right? When we built the building across the street, at the public safety building, it wasn't until the chiefs, the departments, and the town and the building committee had signed off on the space needs that we started doing any sort of planning, right? So that's just really the important part. So Ryan, if it's okay with you and the board, I'm going to kind of reach out to them, our design team, and say, I think they need to have another conversation. I'm happy to participate too, to try to keep all the dots connected. But I think you need to get kind of more particular with them, what you're looking for. They've built libraries, they've been involved with libraries, so they should be bringing what I'll call industry expertise to you as well to say, hey, we saw this in X or Y town, thinking about that. That's what I would suggest is the next step, and obviously keeping a wide open door in mind to what we come out with, especially as the school decision looms pretty close here.
One of the things I noticed in your meeting, Jason, was that it seemed to be that what was the space requirement to bring us up to the present, but and maybe I missed it, but was there stuff factored in for when there are more needs beyond what we have now? I mean, into the future, maybe there would be more footage needed, and that I didn't hear that.
It was supposed to be at least a 15-year plan from now.
All right.
So I'm not hearing full confidence that was taken into account for your department. And that's exactly why we should just continue the dialogue.
Yeah, and I think 1 floor, 2 floors, that's another issue in terms of space because our footprint is small, right? So what's the conversation about going up?
That's a great segue, Marguerite. So not in the interest of having too many cooks here, Jason, but I think because the children's room and the space in the children's room comes up a lot, I'm very interested in involving our assistant director in at least some of the conversations because she's the one who manages the children's room. And I think she also has kind of the institutional knowledge of being here during the renovation in the 80s. So she knows how sort of expanded space affected things. And I find a lot of value in involving her in conversations about the building overall and about renovations in particular. So I would just say she may accompany me to some of the conversations. And we'd love to have you and anybody else from Capitol who wanted to participate.
It would probably be one of us just to avoid any sort of open meeting. And we find that those meetings can be very good with department head and employee representation, and just kind of letting the committee members stand on the side as kind of the town residents kind of overseeing the process and making sure we're thinking about all the angles here.
Okay, that's great. Oh, it's we could probably talk about this for another 2 hours, but I'm going to have to thank you very much and say we'll be in touch.
I would just ask that you all designate someone to work with Ryan if you haven't already, and I'll put the next steps in motion for another conversation with Ryan and his team.
Okay, that's great. We'll discuss it. Thank you very much, Jason.
All right, thank you.
Okay.
Have a good day.
Thanks,
Take care.
Jason.
Bye. Tim Litt pointed out that we moved and seconded, but did not specifically roll call vote on the minutes. So I am going to call a roll call vote on the minutes that we sort of approved. Trustee Davis, do you approve?
I approve, yes.
Okay, Trustee Ekberg,
Yes.
Trustee Landry, aye. Trustee Maney,
Aye.
Trustee Reagan,
Aye.
Trustee Yazdani. Okay, thank you. That's good. That's done. Any other questions about what we just discussed with Jason?
Amy, say aye.
Aye.
Okay,
I'm sure
that-
there's going to be a lot more questions as we continue to move forward. It's a
Okay, for today.
topic. But
All right.
You do have to designate a representative though to work.
Okay, do we want to do this now?
You should, because Jason's going to get in touch with me about setting up a meeting.
All
And
right.
All of you are going to want to do it. So what I make the promise is that it's like Highlander, there can only be one. But I think what we'll do is we'll bring the information back to the board, and then, we'll make sure that no decisions are really substantive decisions are made outside of the board meetings to conform with OML.
Right, so it'll be a point person, not a decision maker. Right, okay. An informer. Okay, so Ryan, what are your thoughts on that?
My thoughts are to defer to the chair of the Board of Trustees.
Oh, man, that's a
Marguerite,
tough one.
You go ahead.
Volunteers? Janet, you want to take that on? Okay.
Is that okay, Ryan?
Yes, you are. I often think of you as my construction buddy. So we're special right now.
Great.
The constructionette. Okay, that's fine.
Can I just
Okay.
ask one financial question quickly before we move on? You
Yeah.
talk about 5,000 square feet. And then Jason says construction cost is between $500 and $600 per square foot. That I think is $3 million. What's the difference between what we get for $3 million and the other number that's kicked around here of $8 to $10 million?
I think there's a big difference, and I think there's square feet and square feet. And I think that, as he said, the siting of it is also expensive rather than the building of it. We have to figure out where to put it. We have to figure out what to do about all these things like septic and parking and blah, blah, blah. So the
Electrical,
square footage is what it
plumbing.
costs.
So,
Yeah.
so there's costs like electrical and plumbing that need to be factored in.
Right.
Internet, so IT infrastructure needs to be part of the conversation.
Right.
There's a lot. And then the other, so part of that financial figure, David, just to not to belabor this, but if we, let's say, for instance, because this has been discussed as a potential idea, is tearing down the 80s renovation and then rebuilding it, right?
Right.
The cost of demolishing that part of the building while maintaining the historic structure
Right.
is that in of itself costs a little bit more than if we weren't trying to sort of actively preserve the other side of the building. So I'm not saying that's the route we would go, but the more it's always less expensive. I'll tell you what the construction specialists have told me. It's always less expensive to build an entirely new library versus renovating an existing structure.
Right.
Mostly in the construction program, libraries choose to renovate their existing structures. They find that doing a needs assessment and looking at their communities, that's what people want.
People want to save the building, right?
That might not be what we want, but that is something that the MBC has found as a pattern over the years.
So
I would
last,
imagine that would happen here too.
Yeah.
so the $3 million, 5,000 square feet times $600 a square foot would be for an expansion of the existing facility, and the $8 to $10 million number would be for a whole new facility. Is that a correct understanding?
No,
Or
that is
a
not.
complete renovation of the facility. It's you have to identify how you're going to renovate before you start talking about costs. The number he kind of was putting out there is if we just added on space to the existing facility now.
Okay,
Which
I understand.
As library director, I can tell you they were looking at adding space specifically off of what is the library staff room. If we were looking to add more public space, which I think is part of an aim of a potential renovation, I have a lot of questions logistically about how we would utilize the space that was being added. There's a lot of questions that would need to be answered before we just tack on additional square footage to the building. It's part of the reason I think why Jason came here, because that was out in a public meeting. And I think we needed to start having a conversation right now. So.
I think something else we need to take into consideration is if we do the design and planning grant, it requires us to identify other sites to build on. And so, I think that should be part of the discussion with capital planning is if they're looking at all the possible sites within town, like how would that impact the sites that we choose to evaluate? Because we have to if we want to go through that process.
Right.
If we're not following a grant cycle, we're not required to do the 2 additional sites. But I would just say, Kim, I think there's a reason why in the grant cycle, they have you review additional sites. And I think it would be important for us to kind of look at that as a model if we go in our own direction and see what are the things that the grant requires that we could be doing now. And one of those is looking at additional potential sites.
And I really love the idea that capital planning is looking at everything and that the space needs consultant is looking at everything in town, because we all know that that almost every department in town is cramped.
I think, sorry, just to add one more thing that I think we have to be cautious of. If we do end up pursuing the construction grant, it only pays for building that has to do with library purposes. So if we end up identifying, space within the library that can also meet other needs of the town, that will not be covered by the grant cycle. And I don't know how, if you could still kind of stick it in and then just like separated out if we do get the grant. So just something else to consider.
What kinds of things
Also-
are you thinking about?
Like
Like
if we,
an office for youth and family.
yeah, or like
Or a senior
more of
center.
like a community center or something like that. Like the
Oh, okay.
not
yeah.
pay for that as part of the cycle, but are we able to do a renovation, also add those and just, pay for the non-library stuff separately? I don't know if any other library has done that through the grant cycle.
This is a really exciting discussion. It's like it's becoming more real. I'm very excited about that, but there are so many moving parts. It's a little bit horrifying.
Just to end the last financial piece, and then I'll be quiet, I promise.
You
With
won't.
state grants too, when you get the money for construction, I should just mention, it's mainly for exterior construction. If you want to buy new furniture, that all needs to be independently, it's not part of the state grant cycle. So I would say a lot of libraries get confused once they go to get the money. They think that half of that is going to be paid for, and it is not. So I just want to mention that to you now, because a lot of libraries end up doing independent fundraising, and part of that is for furniture needs in particular.
That doesn't include stacks though, right? The actual stacks, the shelving?
Stacks it depends on if they're built in. It depends, Marguerite, because
All right.
stacks can be considered furniture. So I think the short answer is that is also something you generally have to pay for, unless it's like an integrated part of the building.
And our first thing is we need to get
Need to
get our
address the permanent needs.
patrons behind the idea that this is going to happen sooner rather than later.
I don't want to say that $2 to $3 million is chump change, but really, in a lot of ways, it is. In looking at all these other construction things, they're talking about, replacing Neary with some other structure, which might be a school, and then use Woodward. These probably ideas are out of date, but a while ago they were saying Woodward isn't the best for a
Yeah.
school, and we could use that space for other things.
Yeah, it's definitely going to cost more than $3 million. I can tell you that at the end of the day.
Right, and probably the figure that you quoted, David, would be if it was brand new construction on a clear site. We have such complications that's gonna run the cost up. I only live in mortal terror of putting on another addition like the one that was put on, which turns out to be sort of the wrong Band-Aid. That's what I'd like to avoid. So there we are. All right, have we somewhat exhausted the topic?
Yes.
Well,
Many
no, but I think we should end it here for today. if
We
that's
got
okay
started.
with you.
Okay, the director's report, if you please, Ray.
Okay, I should pull it up. Should have had it ready. Was there any questions about the director's report? I always like to start off that way.
I have a pedantic question. Under facilities, the first line, where it says Kim Ivers and I, could you change the I to me?
Oh, sure.
I said it was trivial. I said it was pedantic, okay?
My typos in my director's report, David, like usually become a permanent record, but I think we can accept that edit and make
Thank
that
you.
change. So
The editor is in, thank you.
a lot of these are updates from the prior meeting. So I talked about how Kim and I were gonna submit the grants. We did submit the grants. They were slightly more money. So I wanted to give you a heads up on that. Since we're only doing a couple grants, we looked at how to make those more robust, I guess. And then the big thing is there's one figure that we've kind of been hung up on the financial report. They asked some additional service questions at the end, and they want me to try to add up all the hours in FY21 that we provided curbside service. So that's just to clarify, that's not the amount of days, it's the amount of hours we provided the service. That is
Who wants
a
that?
little bit longer
Who
than,
needs that?
yeah. So
Who is asking for that?
the state would like a figure.
Why?
Yeah.
Because they can.
They ask questions like
Happened.
this.
It's past tense.
It's
They
all,
ask
ongoing.
questions like this so that they know. I think they like when they generate things from the MBLC, they can say libraries across the Commonwealth did this many hours of curbside service. So I'm trying to get an accurate number. It's just, as you can imagine, we did curbside service from July 1st up till the end of May, and then we continued doing it through June too, just at limited hours. So trying to add up when we made changes is taking me a little bit of time. So,
You're still doing it, aren't you, Ryan?
Yeah.
Or is it no?
yeah, but
Yeah.
it's now we're in a new fiscal year, so I don't have to count anything. up July.
Oh, okay.
you better keep counting though, because they're gonna ask next year.
Yes,
Yeah.
and so CW Mars, when we switch to the automated system through the catalog, we can actually add up those hours very easily. It's when we were doing everything analog and people were calling, that is what's taking more time to try to add. Plus days were closed because of the construction. I have to factor this into.
Do they want to know how many hours you put into it or how many hours that service was available to the public? Like
The
10?
latter, the how
Yeah.
many it was available to the public.
Okay, that's easier than figuring out how much time you actually invested.
Yeah, the first question I couldn't answer. I'll tell you
Yeah.
that right now. A lot. It was
Right.
more-
Yeah, a lot. It was very
Lot.
work intensive, right? Well, okay, so if we can help out with that in any way, let us know.
Leah Selick is helping me.
Oh, good. Okay,
been
thank
very
you, Leah.
helpful so
Okay,
far,
that's
yeah.
great. Any other questions about the director's report, and can we go to the expense report?
Actually, a quick comment on the director's report.
All right.
I for one find it very disappointing that the book sale only made $109. I happen to be there seeing you set up, and a lot of time of Ryan's and Kim's went into the setup, and the yield on that I regard as very disappointing. Am I being a downer on this, or would that be your take as well, Ryan?
No, this is a nice way. I think the woman who ran the book sale, the Friends member, her name is Diana Tremblay. I think she was also a little bit, I wish she yielded more, I think would be her takeaway too. I'll just say we're planning a big book sale at Heritage Day. That's a nice segue into an announcement about that. Tell your friends, tell them to buy books often and in great quantities, I think is what we're looking for. So the Heritage Day sale usually does about $2,000 of sales. We're hoping that maybe we can even do a little bit more than that. So
You want donations of books for that?
we are accepting donations again because
Okay.
of the capacity room, in the sort of the processing room for donations, and just because we're starting to mobilize volunteers now for it, we're accepting 50 books per visit per week. I'll say that. So you can do 50
50
books
per
once,
person, okay.
and we should say per person, but
Okay.
because people are wanting to donate hundreds of books at a time, and we just don't have the capacity for that. The other option is to bring books very early, the morning of the Heritage Day sale, and we'll try to sort and put books out there. If you are interested in helping, I know trustees in the past have offered to help cashier,
Mhm.
or I will be there Columbus Day setting up. Kim is going to be away running a race. So if anybody wants to help and volunteer with the friends or do cashier duty for part of the day, let me know, because we are looking for people right now for that.
Good. Okay, so that is going to be the 11th, right?
Yeah, the dig-in grant is spent. That was kind of a big victory. So Marguerite, I was gonna call you or possibly Amy to come later today and sign off on the bills. I think there was about $46, $47 left in the grant that we had to spend. So that is in this next payable batch, and then we're done. I got all the bills from OSPC. Mrs. Gillespie was very great. She got everything in by the deadline. So yeah,
Well done.
nothing but nice things to say. I know that it was the last day, but that was why we had a deadline. So it was good that it came in. And she did ask me questions and we sorted everything out. The one other thing to mention, I did want to just mention, you all are aware because you got a notice about the library closing because of the flood. I know Marguerite has come and looked at the drain that was installed at the door that we are having a problem. So it was nice that we have a new facilities team member named Rob Esposito. He was the one who helped look at the area and then installed the drain. I am amazed they got something in that quickly and that effectively. So we had rain recently. The drain worked great. So we're keeping an eye on everything. We'll see what happens during the next heavy rainfall. September is a bad month for rain. That's what I've learned over
The interesting thing about that flooding problem was it wasn't coming off the hill. There was concrete and it was making like a cistern, and it was actual rainfall that it was catching and sending into the library. It was like having a small frog pond there. So they popped a drain into one corner, which we really appreciate getting.
The library never met rainwater. It didn't want to come inside. We just
Nothing but water features here,
Yeah,
people.
we learn new
That's what we do.
ways to get the, I'll tell you when Space Need right now is to prevent water, which we're always.
Kayak racks, I know, yeah, it's like.
But that was it. I mean, I wanted to let you guys know that Marguerite and I are working on the financial report. I think other than that hours question, I have everything done. And that's it for me for directors.
Okay, and so expense report, we're good,
Yes.
everybody? Okay,
We haven't spent any money on office supplies, I'll say, because we were able to charge some of the initial office supplies to the grant.
mhm.
So now you'll see it coming, starting next month, that some of the office supplies are now getting charged to the line item. Because as I like to say, the LSTA party's over. We don't have money anymore that we can allocate for supplies that have to do with the grant. So that'll be something. We're also trying to purchase computers with Jason Montijo. And then, in the interest of making things mobile and remote to go with sort of our programming and meeting setup, we're looking at laptops, which is kind of new. We bought ones years ago for the Scratch, and I'm on one of those now, but we'll have a slightly nicer, newer computers for.
Are those for patrons, the computers for patrons or staff?
They are for staff, which generally the replacement equipment we purchase is for staff.
Okay.
Yeah.
So that sounds, any other trustee questions? It sounds like everything's pretty.
Oh,
under control.
So we can talk more about this at the end, and this may be a future agenda item
Mhm.
because we're on finances now. I did reach out to Chelsea Malinowski on the Board of Selectmen about using translation services for the town. And I will say this became more prominent because we had a gentleman in the library Friday afternoon who only spoke Farsi, which it turns out is a language I'm not fluent in. So I did circle back with Mrs. Malinowski about using the translation services. In particular, we have somebody to use them for now if it comes up. And she wanted me to just check with the board. And then I may have a proposal in our next meeting to allocate up to a certain amount of money out of our dues line to pay for a translator if we need one. So generally the police department, just to give you an initial idea about this, the police department pay around $300 a year for this. I think we could probably go up to 500 and be fine. But I don't know if you have additional feedback or you guys want to talk to me individually after the meeting. We never have really needed one before, but maybe that's just because we didn't have the option available to people. So I'm hoping that when we do have users that come in who we can't communicate with, we could use this as a bridge service. And
You
then
call them and somebody on the other end of the phone does the translating? Is that how it works?
I'm not familiar with exactly how it works. I'd have to talk to the police department about how they use it. But
Oh.
we can't register people for library cards or get them started if we can't communicate. So,
I just discovered Google Translate, which I think is fabulous.
yeah, we
Yeah.
tried to use that with the gentleman and it was just difficult. He was older and he
Yeah,
was familiar with using a keyboard.
right.
So that was he could see what I was saying to him, but I
What
couldn't
was-
understand what he was saying to me.
What
So-
was, do you know what he was looking for?
Yeah, citizen resources. I ended up talking to his daughter on the phone for a while.
Okay.
So I think they're gonna come back, but I was hoping to, the reason why I'm starting this conversation now is to give you a heads up, because I'm gonna probably put this in the next meeting. Is,
Do we have any books in other languages besides English?
yeah, we have some books in Spanish at the library.
Citizen resources, I mean, like paperwork,
Citizenship. He's applying for citizenship.
right? And he comes to the library for that?
Yep. People come to the library for everything, Janet.
Mhm.
I know, but that doesn't add up to me. Why you would, I guess it's one of the few public service facilities, but why the expectation would be that you'd be experts in citizenship, which is, you need a lawyer. It's very complicated.
Well, there are books about taking the citizenship test, and I think he was
Oh, okay.
going to find books specifically in Farsi, but we couldn't register him for a library card.
Yeah.
Because we couldn't. We got his address, but we couldn't really get anything else. So, you know, long story already about this, but I think we need. There is a translation
Access to something.
service available to the town. We're trying to kind of get on that, if possible.
It'd be sort of cool to have. We
Yeah,
can
Chelsea
try it
just
out, yeah.
mentioned, Mrs. Malinowski mentioned that we would need to allocate funding towards that. So I'm letting you know there's a financial component I need to come back to you guys about.
Okay, keep us posted then.
Yeah.
Can we, if there aren't any other questions on that, can we move forward to the appointments of the library associates, technicians, and pages? Everybody okay on that? All right, I think this is, Ryan, first of all, fabulous that you have spent so much time hiring so many great people, and welcome to all of them. And I know it was a huge amount of work. What I'm planning to do here is simply to read boilerplate. I accept the recommendation of the library director to appoint whoever it is under Schedule C, grade, whatever that is, for the minimum pay rate of the grade. Then I will be doing that for all the hires. And it's pretty cut and dried, okay?
So we have to
So you
just,
can all go get coffee while I do
yeah,
it.
just to clarify the process, we need to individually do this for each candidate. So we have to do it 8 times because there's actually only 7 new employees. One of the existing employees is moving into a new grade. So, but she did go through a competitive interview process, and it's like she's being appointed like all the other candidates. So we
Okay.
need to just do them kind of one at a time. So I
Can we
recognize.
just have one vote at the end, or do we have to vote for each?
You have to vote each one. Sorry, Janet.
Are we sure we have to vote each one?
Yes.
Okay, let's get going. All right, I accept the recommendation of the library director to appoint Amy Kaufman to the position of library associate under Schedule C, Grade 3 of the Town of Southborough Salary Administration Plan for the minimum pay rate of the grade. Do I have a motion to accept? Or do we have to simply vote? Or do we have to move second and vote on each one, Ryan?
I would move second and do it just so that you're
Okay,
safe.
who wants to be the move and who wants to be the second?
You move, Marguerite, because
Oh, I move. Who wants to second? Janet,
I'll second.
David will second. He's in
David will
fine
second.
voice. Sorry, Janet. Okay.
That's
All
fine.
right, so do I have a second?
Second.
All right, Trustee Davis.
Jane, you're muted.
Sorry, I had to step out for a second.
Okay,
sorry.
that's fine. Trustee Ekberg,
Aye.
Trustee Landry, aye. Trustee Maney,
Aye.
Trustee Reagan,
Aye.
Trustee Yazdani.
Aye.
Okay, thank you. That is unanimous.
one
Next,
down. One
just
down.
one
guys.
down. Okay. The next,
Oops.
wait a second here. I'm looking for my boilerplate. Okay, I accept the recommendation of the library director to appoint Kathleen Schoner to the position of library associate under Schedule C, Grade 3 of the Town of Southborough's Salary Administration Plan for the minimum pay rate of the grade. Do I have a second?
Second.
Okay, Trustee Davis,
Aye.
Trustee Ekberg,
Aye.
Trustee Landry, aye. Trustee Manning. Janet's gone. Okay, we don't need all of us. Trustee Reagan,
Aye.
Trustee Estani?
Aye.
Thank you. Okay, that's 2. I accept the recommendation of the library director to appoint Claudia Roche to the position of library technician. Let's see, under Schedule C, Grade 2 of the Town of Southborough's Salary Administration Plan for the minimum pay rate of the grade. Do I have a second, David?
Second.
Okay. Trustee Davis,
Aye.
Trustee Eckberg,
Aye.
Trustee Landry, aye. Trustee Manning. We don't know. Trustee Reagan,
Aye.
Trustee Estani.
Aye.
Okay, thank you. I accept the recommendation of the library director to appoint Madrid Elena Cunningham to the position of library page under Schedule C, Grade 1 of the Town of Southborough Salary Administration Plan for the minimum pay rate of the grade. Do I have a second?
Second.
Trustee Davis,
Aye.
Trustee Eckberg,
Aye.
Trustee Landry, aye. Trustee Maney,
Aye.
Trustee Reagan,
Aye.
Trustee Asdani.
Aye.
Okay, that's great. I accept the recommendation of the library director to appoint Jackson Harris to the position of library page under Schedule C, Grade 1 of the Town of Southborough Salary Administration Plan for the minimum pay rate of the grade. Do I have a second?
Second.
Trustee Davis,
Aye.
Trustee Eckberg,
Aye.
Trustee Landry, aye. Trustee Maney,
Aye.
Trustee Reagan,
Aye.
Trustee Asdani.
Aye.
Thank you very much. It's unanimous. Okay, I accept the recommendation of the library director to appoint Maggie Mercadante to the position of library page under Schedule C, Grade 1 of the Town of Southborough's Salary Administration Plan for the minimum pay rate of the grade. Do I have a second?
Second.
Trustee Davis,
Aye.
Trustee Eckberg,
Aye.
Trustee Landry, aye. Trustee Maney,
Aye.
Trustee Reagan,
Aye.
Trustee Asdani.
Aye.
Okay, I think for the next one, Kim, you need to recuse yourself from this vote because it's a relative.
Yes, I recuse myself from this one.
Okay, thank you. All right, I accept the recommendation of the library director to appoint Maya Reagan to the position of library page under Schedule C, Grade 1 of the Town of Southborough's Salary Administration Plan. Do I have a second?
Second.
Trustee Davis,
Aye.
Trustee Eckberg,
Aye.
Trustee Landry, aye. Trustee Manning,
Aye.
Trustee Reagan. Oops, sorry, you're recused. Trustee Asdani.
Aye.
Okay, thanks. That's passed. I accept the recommendation of the library director to appoint Autumn Stewart to the position of library page under Schedule C, Grade 1 of the Town of Southborough's Salary Administration Plan for the minimum pay rate of the grade. Do I have a second?
Second.
Trustee Davis,
Aye.
Trustee Eckberg,
Aye.
Trustee Landry, aye. Trustee Maney,
Aye.
Trustee Reagan,
Aye.
Trustee Asdani.
Aye.
All right, we're done.
Last one,
Yay.
the last one now, guys, just one more.
Who is it?
Was that it?
Yes,
Oh, never mind. We did everybody.
we are done. If I left anyone out, my bad, but I don't think I did. Okay, so collection management policy. Jane Davis, David Eckberg, and Ryan Donovan will explain this to us.
Well, you saw it. I hope you all
Mhm.
read it.
Mhm.
Comments, thoughts?
Just so everybody knows, Ryan and Kim Ivers, importantly, and Jane and I met earlier this month and hashed through this. And I've had 2 subsequent conversations with Ryan just to fine tune it and
I thought it was
do the pedantic things that I do. And so the final draft is what you have. Happy to answer any questions, but we cleaned it up, I hope. And it does what it's supposed to do. Is that correct, Ryan?
Yes.
It seems
Right.
clear, balanced, and short to me, which is excellent.
We are looking for additional feedback that we can bring to the next meeting. If anybody has any, I can see Janet writing, so I know.
No.
No, so we can bring back additional edits to the next meeting. So if anybody sees anything that needs to be modified, or more importantly, if it's missing anything. After Kim and I talked about it, following our meeting with David and Jane. We did have other staff members, in particular ones who do acquisitions. So the full-time staff read the policy. They didn't find anything additional to add. So I can just, we asked for additional
Good.
feedback beyond just Kim and I, because we wanted to make sure the policy made sense to everybody. So I think substantively it's good, but if there's additional editorial feedback or you do see something that needs to be added or subtracted, please speak now.
I'm willing to accept this the way it is. I think it's very well done. Any other thoughts?
Thought it was good. I noticed at the end, it said the policy should be reviewed by the South Florida Library Board of Trustees every 5 years. Do we want to say or as needed? Like, do we think anything would come up that we would want to amend it sooner? I guess it doesn't preclude us from amending it sooner, right?
Yeah, the idea behind this was to, because it's been over 5 years at the least that we've taken a look at the policy. And I think one of the biggest things to come out of the review form was like email was not added, because I don't think people had emails when the policy was first
Right.
passed, or it wasn't as widely used as it is now, right? So I think one of the components of that was we wanted the policy to be under a regular review process. But I'm open to as needed. I just think it needs to, what I would probably do is in 5 years from now, I'd probably bring this up. And then it might be as simple as sending the policy out to the board and the board saying nothing needs to be changed.
The only reason there might be a problem with or as needed is you could conceivably get someone saying, well, you better change your policy to fit what I want you to do. And so I see where you're going with that, Kim, and I think that we could probably change it if we saw fit to, but I think putting 5 years there is, as it stands now, is okay with me.
You
I
can
think-
always evaluate a policy and
Mhm.
make changes or revisions prior to the 5-year mark. It's so, I mean, it's whatever you guys decide when it comes to what you want the policy to be. I just think we need to do a check-in about it every 5 years. That's what that kind of gets at. So
Would
that,
you want to say at least every 5 years? That's kind of,
Probably fine as is.
are you okay with it? As
I
is? It's really interesting about the email not being in the previous one. There will probably be things in 5 years that we haven't even thought of yet, too. Do we need to vote to accept?
Probably should.
so just as a reminder for policies, you do need to take a formal vote if you
Okay.
want the library to accept a revised policy.
Okay,
Yes.
good. Do I have a motion to accept the collection policy as rewritten?
Collection management policy is what,
Collection management policy,
that's what
thank you.
MBLC recommends.
All
So
right,
it kind of has a new name now.
okay. Do I have a motion to accept?
I move to accept the collection management policy as written.
Do I have a second?
Second,
All right, that's David. All right, so let's see, all those in favor, trustee Davis,
Aye.
trustee Eckberg,
aye,
trustee Landry, aye, trustee Maney,
Aye.
trustee Reagan.
Aye.
Trustee Yazdani?
I,
No opposed. Okay, so the collection management policy is accepted as rewritten. It's really a beautiful job, people. It's clear, it's sane, it's fabulous. I'm
We had a
really
very
happy
good
about it.
team of people.
Yeah,
working
they
on it,
are. They're
so.
unstoppable. So what, are we gonna look at other policies as they come up, or are we?
We
gonna-
did use some other libraries' policies as for suggestions and
Yeah.
things that we might have forgotten. So we looked at a couple of other libraries' collection management policies.
Good way to do it, actually, yeah. So are there other policies that are in need of attention right now, Ryan? do you think?
I think the development of the volunteer policy
All
that
right,
Kim Regan and Amy Yazdani have been working on is
okay,
probably the next thing. So that's not
Okay.
revising an existing policy,
okay.
but that's sort of
That's a
looking
new
at
policy, yeah,
and creating a new policy.
all right,
Includes the Corey check that we've been talking for a couple meetings about. So
yes,
I would like that to be the focus. And then I always say, I say our capacity in meetings is good to have one policy at a time. Some sort of time sensitive issue, only because policy review and then edits do take usually a couple meetings. So to
all
me,
right,
like a focus on the volunteer policy is the next thing I would like to see the board work on,
okay.
if the board's amenable to that.
Well, that's fine. Kim and Amy, would you like to speak to that?
Sure. I can give a quick update on what we've done
Great.
so far. We didn't get as far as creating the policy like collection management, but we are starting from scratch on this one. So I consulted the Massachusetts Library System Policy Collection, and two things that they noted is that we should check to see whether we have any requirements from personnel, union contracts, or anything, or town council. And Ryan confirmed that the personnel board doesn't have jurisdiction over this area, so we don't have to worry about them with regards to this policy. But we can also check in with our town council. So we're compiling a list of questions that we want to have Ryan email to the town council. And this will tell us whether we have any like requirements or if it's just a recommendation. So in the meantime, I didn't think now was the best time to contact our schools, with schools starting up over the past couple of weeks. But what we did do is look at which of our schools had volunteer policies. The only one I could find listed online was for Woodward, and they do require the Corey check. I just do know anecdotally that to volunteer in any schools, you need to have your Corey check up to date before you can go into the school. We also compiled a list of libraries. We have a Google Doc if anyone would like to see this, of other local libraries that have volunteer policies that require Corey checks. There's a small list of libraries that I found that have volunteer policies that don't mention Corey checks. So it does seem overwhelmingly so that if the library does have a volunteer policy, they are requiring Corey checks. And then Amy also added to this list to note that a lot of libraries where I thought we couldn't find volunteer policies, they're actually rolling up into townwide volunteer or Corey policies. So I guess that brings up another question on whether we have anything at the town level for a volunteer policy or Corey policy. Ryan, do you know if you do?
I checked for you yesterday. I had a brief conversation with Vanessa Hale, and we not. I do think, and I mentioned this to Amy yesterday, is that it looks like us sort of starting this process over the summer and then continuing with it in the fall is making the town consider doing a townwide policy. So again, a townwide policy also would need to be accepted by the Board of Trustees, but this might be one of those circumstances where we're really a policy leader for the town and looking to develop sort of a local policy for the library that the town could then adopt and possibly adapt for other departments. I will say the needs of the library are somewhat different than the senior center, because I don't think that they're dealing with children in the same way on a regular basis that we are. So I don't know if what the Board of Selectmen would want to do is take a look at having each department do it individually based on what the needs of the department are. But I think there is an appetite. I keep using that term, but I think there's some interest in looking at developing a townwide policy. And I like to think that part of that was us having discussions about it and starting to do that work a little bit ourselves. So I'm saying ourselves, but I think Kim and Amy have done a lot of work on this, so.
So at this point, Ryan, I guess we could get our questions answered from the town council. Do you suggest we just go ahead and write our own, or like, does the town seem very close to doing this, that we would just fall under?
No, I think if we wanted to develop something in the next couple meetings, we would have to draft up something ourselves. The other option would be, of course, going to the Board of Selectmen and then asking them to create a policy. But I think since we've done a lot of the homework ourselves and we've looked at specific, again, I'm saying ourselves when I know Kim has done the majority of the research here. So Kim has looked at the policies of other libraries. I think a next natural step would be adapting some of the language and the policies in libraries that we like, and then seeing how they would fit into ours. And that, to sort of Jane's prior point with the collection management policy, I'll give Ashland some credit because there were some lines in Ashland's policy in their collection management that were better, I think, than our existing language. And so I tried to give it the Southborough spin, but a lot of it is from that Ashland policy. So it reads very similar to theirs. I think we could look at, again, volunteer policies that require Corey checks and then adopt those potentially.
It
So.
sounds good. And Ashland may have gotten it from someplace else. I mean, these tend to be, if it's a successful sentence, it tends to show up in a lot of things, right? So this is wonderful. I think if we wait for a townwide policy, it'll be at least a year or two. So my thought is just we should do a library policy and deal with the townwide one.
And if you look at this, the Google Doc that Kim and I have out there, they're pretty much boilerplate. They're all very similar. Though even the townwide ones are almost identical. So I don't think there's going to be a lot of deliberation necessarily because, why
Right.
reinvent the wheel?
Right. Okay. So I think it's wonderful. And I'm really happy that you're doing all this work on this. And shall we, do you want to bring a document to the next meeting, or do you think it's going to take you longer than that?
We can certainly bring a draft. So, I mean, we haven't heard from town council because we haven't fully reached out to them yet, but it would be my recommendation that we develop the volunteer policy with the requirement of the Corey check.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, is that up for debate at all with this group or?
No.
Okay.
Nope. Does anybody?
I would just state as library director, I would strongly encourage you to require Corey checks for any volunteers.
Yes, and this is just with the issue that has come up in past meetings, covering programs or volunteering that happens within the library building as well as anywhere outdoors on the library grounds, correct?
Yeah, I'm on that page, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Anybody?
I mean, we certainly have concerns about the garden and the issues that have come up with requiring Corey checks for people who volunteered for that. And I don't have a recommendation. I'd just say that I read I took two of the suburban things, Canton and Concord, and read them. They have very formal policies. I mean, Canton is library department heads recruit, screen, interview, train, and direct and evaluate, volunteers. That's way out of the scope of what the Open Space Committee has done with their volunteers.
Well, see,
And-
Janet,
Yeah.
not to cut you off, but just to kind of make a qualifier there is that I don't actually coordinate and manage any of the volunteers for the garden. That is something independently that the Open Space Preservation Commission is doing. So I think the policy needs to reflect that if it's a volunteer, is the volunteer working with a different organization? Is it that organization's responsibility to do Corey checks? I would just say I can only be responsible for the people that we qualify as library volunteers, right? So that is something on a policy level, we need to make the distinction right there. So I think we need to decide who is managing the volunteers. If it isn't the library, then I don't know that we can really
But
give.
it's not our thing. For the
the-
Friends of the Library, for instance, they will have volunteers and their volunteers do not fall under our policy.
Right.
When they do a book
Or
sale.
should they? I mean, that's kind of a question. It depends on what they're
Oh.
doing. I think if they're just general Friends members, are they coming for a book sale? I don't think it makes sense to Cory check every participant.
No, that's a different organization.
Yeah.
Every volunteer that we are responsible for, those are other organizations and we're not. But what about what about the gardeners when they come to do gardening?
They're not working with children. They're
I also
outside.
I don't manage the gardener volunteer.
Okay, so all right, I
The
think,
policies I read very specifically in every line say library volunteers, library volunteers,
library,
library volunteers.
Yeah,
Somebody who's
Yeah.
gardening isn't necessarily, but maybe the policy should include a statement that says other organizations sometimes have functions or projects on the library grounds, and their policies would govern their.
you can also
something
have a
like that.
line at the end of the policy, if you so choose to, stating that it is the encouragement of the library trustees to Cory check anybody who would have any contact with the library, or to encourage our partners to do Cory checks on any partnership projects. But again, I think a qualifier of what makes a library volunteer versus an OSPC volunteer, that needs to kind of be clear in there. So
Right.
that would be, I will work with you on that, Kim. So.
All right, maybe that's where we need legal counsel on that. 'Cause it's
Yeah,
like,
Yeah.
that's
I
what I
under-
was thinking.
we can clearly write the volunteer policy for library volunteers. I think that's pretty cut and dry. But maybe this is also kind of separately bringing up issues on, like, when you have vendors or, programs come in, we're not Cory checking those people, but those people are essentially always being supervised by library staff for the program being run. So would OSPC have fallen under that sort of thing? So maybe that's more where we need counsel from legal.
Yeah,
I
yeah,
mean, it's not included in this policy, but it's a separate issue.
yeah.
Okay.
Yeah,
And I
We are
think
about-
the policy.
We're only dealing with this issue and not
Right,
all these
right.
issues.
And that's
Yeah.
one thing is that well, see, Janet brought up the garden, which is what generated the additional discussion on this, right? Which is important, but it is.
No more garden.
You find in a policy that don't address everything. And I think one thing that we're trying to do here is make sure that kids are safe. That's where we start, right? And we kind of go from there, and we make sure that everything we're doing, even beyond the policy, is with that idea.
Right, but at a certain point, I think Kim is right. Town council can tell us where our responsibilities are and where they aren't. We can encourage other organizations to do Cory checks, but we can't mandate them to do it. So
Right.
there it is. So question for town council. Anyway, so this sounds excellent. So we
It's
look
really
forward
good.
to the next.
Resources listed and stuff are great.
Yeah, it's great. All right. So if there's any other thoughts on this, or shall we move on to item 10, which is any other business that shall properly come before the board? Of which there is not any, apparently. So,
I'll just make an announcement that there is a MBLC viewing party for the book cast. If you guys are,
Oh.
it's at 7:00 tomorrow night. So we had some residents who were interested, and I have to say I kind of dropped the ball in getting some of the information out about it. So we do have posters up at the library, and there is information on our website, and Southborough is now officially a partner for the MBLC viewing party. So if you guys want more information about that, or anybody's watching the meeting, there's a lot of libraries that got involved this week. We weren't the only ones. So I think it's going to be a pretty good discussion, and they have the author of the book. So I'll just kind of throw that out, because we don't get to talk about books that often and talk about book discussions. And this is one avenue where if you're available tomorrow night, you want to participate, you can let me know. So.
and they could find, and any
They could do
resident
it
who
on the-
wanted to see it could find it on the website.
Yeah, under,
You can do it independent of the library as well.
yeah,
I already
Great.
signed up.
Good girl.
Fabulous book.
I'm only halfway through the book because it's very difficult reading.
It's very dense, yes.
Well, not just that, but just it's difficult. You know what's coming up in the next chapter, and you just put it away.
Right, she does not shrink from telling it like it is or was.
Right.
It's beautifully written.
Yeah,
She did an unbelievable job.
yeah. No, that's a life-changing book, really, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah, it is.
That's
Anyway.
it for me.
Okay.
Okay, so then do I have a motion to adjourn?
I move.
Okay, and a second.
Second,
All right, and trustee Davis,
Aye.
trustee Ekberg,
aye.
trustee Maney,
Aye.
trustee Landry, I, trustee Reagan,
Aye.
trustee Asdani.
Aye.
Okay, the meeting is adjourned. It is 12:33. Thank you, everybody. I think we got a lot done, and I will see you soon.
And congratulations on all your new employees.
Yes.
That's fun.
That was
Thank
a
you.
lot of
We're
work.
we're gonna get them started now. And I know you just adjourned, but we are coming up with the finalists for the youth services position. So I mentioned in the director's report, we had 7 applications. I would say, we do have 2 final candidates. It looks like one of them during our meeting emailed me to say they accepted another job. So we're, I think, set up an interview with somebody else that we were thinking about interviewing and then go from there. We do have an internal candidate who applied, so.
And that one's still, she's not the one who accepted a different job.
No, this is, it is another part-time person. So it seems like we're hiring a lot of people, but I will just say that we already had one internal change. There may even potentially be another. So, Kim and I have worked very hard on the schedule. I am very confident that we have it sort of under control as soon as the new people start. So I'm very excited about that because if any of you have been in the library, you see me running around quite a lot. And I'm hoping to actually unpack my office. That's been a goal for a month, so.
Big
Okay.
dreams, Ryan, big
Oh,
dreams.
that's right, it was painted. Yeah.
Excellent. Okay, everyone, we'll see you soon.
Okay. Oh,
When's the
next
one,
meeting?
Marguerite, just to
Next
remind
meeting.
everybody.
Oh, yeah,
Next
yeah.
meeting date is going to be,
Oh, I have a request. Sorry, that was a big thing. Can we do a special meeting the morning of October 5th? It's a Tuesday.
yes, I can. Is everybody else okay on that?
You know?
The express purpose for the meeting is going to be for the appointment of the new full-time position.
Okay,
So it's a quickie.
What
Yeah,
time?
this will be very similar to the meeting we did a couple weeks ago.
is 11 okay for everybody?
Yeah.
Yep.
Kim, does that work for you, 11?
I should be able to, yes.
Okay.
Because
we
we're
can make
hoping
it-
to complete second round. I need to find another candidate, but we need to look at finishing up the second round interviews next week.
All right,
We already are drafting those dates, and only Vanessa is helping us with the interview schedule. That's what ended up working out. So it's just Kim, Vanessa, and I.
okay, so let's say that special meeting will be 11 o'clock on the 5th of October. And our next scheduled Library Board of Trustees meeting is the 19th of October, which is a
Yes.
Tuesday, 3rd Tuesday of the month at 11 o'clock.
Yes.
Yes,
All right.
John and I met about the carpet yesterday, which was also briefly in the director's report. So I may have, I don't know if the carpet work is gonna start prior to, I would say our next regular scheduled meeting would be October 19th, which is 2 weeks from the 5th.
Mhm.
If anything with the work requires an operational change, like we have to shut down upstairs, I will give you an update. And if I have, we might put it as an agenda item on the 5th, just so I can give you a brief update. I don't really have anything to say other than I think we've picked a carpet. So I can tell you that, but we have
Yay.
final paint colors. So that is, the work is still sort of in progress. So we're hoping we'll have it all finalized soon.
Okay, that's great. So where we're leaving it, we will next meet on the 5th of October at 11 by Zoom, and then the meeting after that, the 19th of October by Zoom at 11. And also by the 30th, which day are we meeting with Pat? The
30th.
Yep. The 30th,
Oh,
which is
September.
Thursday at,
Yeah.
my
Noon?
God, I have so many things going on here. Yep,
12
okay, at
o'clock.
noon.
Is it 12
Noon.
o'clock?
Noon, all right, thank you. Too many balls in the air here. All right, excellent. Okay, so I guess we're actually now adjourned.
Sorry about that. I
No,
know.
no,
you're here and
it
I had
happened.
all those
We
announcements.
just have
I
so
did-
much to say. Okay.
Yeah, I
Bye,
forgot about the
everybody.
5th. Sorry about
Okay.
that. Yeah.
Have a good week.